Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 9th, 2025. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Chris Colby, author of the Homebrew Recipe Bible, Methods of Modern Homebrewing, and How to Make Hard Seltzer, joins me to formulate a recipe for my latest Mash Your Luck Challenge, a small, tart, brown beer of German inspiration. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing. Many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. And many thanks to the new Patreon subscribers who are signing up every week. Your help is very much appreciated. Steve and I need to get together to shoot some videos. We've both got beers to share, and Steve also has a mead that sounds delicious. Financial supporters will see those before the general public, and we'll get recipes and behind-the-scenes footage as well. I met Steve for lunch this week at West Mountain Brewing on the Square in Fayetteville. We had a great lunch. The food was tasty, and the beers were solid and delicious as well. We had excellent and attentive service because we were the only customers in the place for the 90 minutes that we were there, sadly. Our server said they were very busy through the holidays, and when the calendar flipped over to January, it was like somebody turned off the spigot. So even if you're avoiding alcohol this month, please find a way to support your local brewery or tap room, because they'll be hurting until February. And especially take care of your waitstaff. Be sure to tip generously, because, people, a lot fewer people are coming in. On the positive side, we got to meet the fairly new brewer at West Mountain, Brian. We were impressed by his beers and his story, and we made a date to do an interview with Brian next week, so you'll hear that soon. Back to depressing news. Ozark Beer Company up in Rogers announced this week that they're restructuring their operations and having to say goodbye to several of the people who work there. They didn't get specific on that in their Facebook post, but I know making the decision to trim down was incredibly difficult for Andy and Lacey, whom you've heard on this show. I hope that the restructuring sets them up for a more positive future, because they're great folks at Ozark, and they brew wonderful beers. You can brew wonderful beers with yeast from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast. How's that for an awkward transition? You can still find the seasonal, or if you can still find the seasonal B45 Gnome, get your hands on it, because it's a good one. Chris and I taste the Belgian Golden in this show that I brewed with Gnome. I gave a second pack to Steve, and he says he's going to brew a Belgian single with Gnome that sounds very fun and tasty. You know we love Imperial Yeast. With 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package, my stir plate is usually dusty because I don't use it anymore to make starters for 5-gallon moderate gravity batches. And my airlocks are usually bubbling before bedtime. Ask your local homebrew store about Imperial Yeast and check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. It's imperialyeast.com. And many thanks to Imperial for sticking with us into 2025. Okay, I've already brewed the beer that Chris and I formulate this week. I've yet to flavor and bottle it. It didn't go as we planned, and I'll tell you what went differently after we chat. So first, let's talk to Chris Colby. Chris Colby, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, we're gonna drink some beer. We're gonna talk about some beer.
Mm.
I like the sound of that. How about you?
What an interesting combination.
We're recording in December 16th. It's like 65 degrees up here in northwest Arkansas. Warm down there as well?
Oh, it must be like 70 right now, or 70. I'm serious. I can look it up.
That's nuts.
That'll make for some fascinating podcast.
Yeah. So
Chris is looking up his temperature.
Well, we're that age.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 80.
Oh, what?
Yeah. It's December 16th and it's 80 degrees.
Holy smokes. You need a nice, cold, refreshing beer.
I do.
How's that for a segue?
There you go.
It's almost like I meant to do it.
That's why you're the trained professional.
I do have a degree. But you're the doctor. You have an advanced degree. Last time we got together, I wanted to formulate a recipe to go with B45 Gnome from our sponsor, Imperial Yeast. So we came up with what I was calling a hoppy Belgian golden.
Yeah.
And the recipe, you called for 8 pounds of Pilsner malt. I bumped it up to 10. So it was 10 pounds or 4.5 kilograms of Pilsner malt, 2 pounds or 900 grams of Vienna, and 1 pound or 450 grams of wheat malt. And all of these were Weyermann malts, if that matters to anybody. I mashed at 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 65 C for 90 minutes. I collected my wort. To the 60-minute boil, an hour and a half. I boiled for an hour and a half. To the beginning of an hour and a half boil, I added 1.25 pounds or 570 grams of table sugar and also 1 ounce or 28 grams of Magnum at 11.3% alpha acid. And here's where it gets a little tricky. After the mash, I had a cable malfunction, which scrapped my plans to brew electrically. So I talked about it a little bit in the disaster show. So what I had to do was unplug my kettle, and luckily my electric system, my Warthog system, is a converted Cajun cooker kettle. So Susan and I were able to – I got my propane burner out of the basement and dusted it off. It's even dustier than my stir plate. And Susan helped me wearing appropriate heat-proof gloves or heat-resistant gloves. We took the kettle and put it onto the old propane burner, and then I was able to boil for an hour and a half on the propane burner. And the original plan was to lower the temperature to 180 degrees Fahrenheit for a hop stand. Well, I couldn't predictably do that without the electric setup, hooked up. So I skipped the hop stand and just chilled down and pitched a B45 Gnome. And then after, fermentation slowed a little bit, I just took all of the hops, including the hops that were going to go into the hop stand. I dry hopped with all of them. So in the dry hop, I did 2 ounces each, or 56 grams of Nectaron and Idaho 7. And then I kegged. So original gravity 1067, final gravity 1008 for an ABV of 7.8%. So yeah, it's a big one. It's deceptive, I think. So what do you think? You just got yours straight out of the fridge. It should complexify as time goes on, but what do you think?
The aroma's really good. I like it. You can get the character of the yeast, which I never had anything with that yeast before. Any beers brewed with that yeast. I get some hops, a little bit, appropriate for there's not finishing hops or anything, so it's low, but a little bit of hops, and the it's nice and malty. It's like I think the Vienna did this good, because this is like, to me, this is like in the ballpark of a Duvel, that kind of beer, but it's a little more. It's got a little more dark roasty, not super dark, but
right,
orangey, malty, light amber, malty. Yeah, no, this came out good.
Oh, good.
And it's there's no heat from the the alcohol. It's not so there's no quote unquote fusel oils that I can detect. And what was the temperature of fermentation?
Just room temperature, probably 68 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is good. This is this tastes like a Belgian, a strong Belgian.
Excellent. It finished at 10:08, but it tastes a little bit bigger than that to me. The finishing gravity. It's got a little bit more of a mouthfeel than that in my mind. I was expecting it to be, Duvel is a little more champagne-y to me, kind of dry.
Yeah, a little drier.
Dry and just like, you sip it and it's just like, woof, goes away. This has a lingering flavor at the end of it. I don't know if that's just the hop character coming through or if that's, as the beer warms up, I get a lot of clove. Steve Wilkes on the Disaster Show compared it to a Franziskaner Hefeweizen. There's not a lot of banana that I don't get a lot of banana in this beer, but certainly the clove comes out after a while. And Steve said he got some black pepper as well. So
yeah, I think Duvel. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it finishes at a slightly lower gravity, so that would make it a little drier.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, it's maybe, and I'd have to go back and like taste them side by side, but I think it's also a little bit more carbonated,
probably, yeah.
which tends to make the beer seem a little drier. Because this has like the normal craft brew level of, or home brew level of carbonation, but Duvel is a little bit spritzier.
You've got a keg fill there, so mine's probably a teeny bit more carbonated than yours, just because of the transfer.
Sure.
But if I had been able to do the hop stand after the end of the boil, I think it would have increased the bitterness and probably the hop character as well. I don't know that I would like that any better than this beer.
I think it's certainly got all the bittering hops it needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say if some finishing hops would do it. I think a little would do it good, but I think it also tastes good as it is.
I don't know if I were to brew it again. I don't know that I would change anything. It's just unless just for experiment's sake.
Right.
But I think I think it came out real good. I wasn't after, like a Belgian IPA.
Right.
But I wanted something with a hop character, like a fruity hop character that would pair well with, the spiciness of a Belgian yeast. And I think we accomplished that. And I don't know if I forget all the descriptors for I've got them right here. This is the advantage of not cleaning my studio. This is from like a month ago or whatever it was. Nectaron.
Cleaning has advantages. I wish to subscribe to your newsletter, sir.
It's Hoarders Monthly. Or whenever it comes out.
Yeah.
You get a stack of them all at once. Nectaron is said to have citrus, pineapple, passion fruit, grapefruit, and stone fruit. And then Idaho 7 was said to have berry, bubblegum, citrus, stone fruit, and tropical. Those are the descriptors for those. I don't know how much of that you can tease out of this sample. But I think, I get fruitiness for sure.
Yeah.
And depending on, what time of day and, what I've eaten that day and all that, I get more. It's a complex beer so that, things change. Like I'm not getting as much clove right now as sometimes I do. But, maybe later on this evening, that'll change. So thanks for your help on that. I apologize. I was going to send you some of my hickory smoked habanero powder, and I forgot. Of course I did.
Awesome.
I was gonna put a baggie of it, up here by the keg, so that when I did the keg fills and boxed everything up, I would just say, "Oh yeah, I got to put that in there," and of course I forgot. So let's make another beer that I can forget to put that in as well.
Yeah.
Of course, I could just box it up by itself and send it down to you if I weren't lazy, I guess. But I mean,
wait till you have a beer to go with it, and that's perfecto.
Yeah. So I think earlier this month, I got on the horn with Scott Housel and Adam Ross, and I did a Mash Your Luck, and I came up with the characteristics: low ABV. It was very low, and I rolled the Joker on that one. So it improved a little bit. So low ABV, and I'm considering that like less than 4%.
Sure.
3-something%, I think I would be happy with.
Right.
Low bitterness,
Sure.
brown,
Okay.
sour,
Sour.
and German.
Mm.
So I can't think of any existing styles that are like that. Can you?
Yeah, the only one I can think of would be Lichtenhainer. That's it's like a smoked sour.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Scott Housel has already done that on the show. So
okay.
I don't want to do another Lichtensteiner. Yeah,
And we don't have to.
when you suggested that, I thought you were joking because I thought we've already done that obscure smoky tart style. So you and I were texting back and forth and kind of brainstorming ahead of time, which may or may not be breaking the rules of the recipe development show. I don't know. But then I joked Black Forest Light, Lite, as as a joke, and then I went, now wait a minute. That actually, I think the Black Forest is in Germany, right?
Yes.
And cherries. What do you got? What is it? What is a Black Forest cake? What ingredients go into Black Forest desserts?
It's a layered chocolate cake with it's like icing between the layers or whipped cream, and then there's cherries in it.
Yeah. So
It's
cherries
a tort.
cherries are tart. And so I'm thinking, and it's sweet. So I'm thinking we could get away with making a session beer as far as alcohol goes, but that tastes big because maybe we use some lactose in there to bump up the finishing gravity so that we get that sweetness in there and kind of that milkiness in there as well. And then, I successfully used cacao nibs tincture in the Big Dark World beer.
Yeah.
And some cherry flavoring from the homebrew shop.
Sure.
Mix all that stuff. Do a kettle sour, which is the trickiest part, to get some tartness. And then I toyed with the idea, instead of doing a kettle sour, to put some lactic acid in there. What do you think about that? Which way should we go? Do you have much experience in those areas, or have a preference?
Adding lactic acid is the quickie way to do it. And you could also potentially like take a small sample and figure out how much lactic acid you would need to get to where you want. But kettle souring is a little more variable, but I don't know, like a little more natural and something, not really natural, but you know what I mean.
It seems more authentic.
Yeah. Although, yeah.
although
like that. I mean, there are people who are like, kettle souring is all terrible and blah blah blah. But
right.
I tend not to listen to those people. Because I've bulk conditioned a lot of sour beers, and whereas that's super. I'm not gonna pat myself on the back for not kettle souring just because I hadn't thought of it at the time. I haven't had a beer that I think that would work for.
And I went out and I was looking for the Good Belly shots, with the lactobacillus in it. But I found this stuff. Let me see if I can find the photograph of this thing. It's a product I think it's from Mexico. It's called El Viajero, and it's called BioSalud. And salud means health. And it's got in it Lactobacillus casei and Lactobacillus helveticus.
Sure.
So I'm thinking I could use that as a kettle souring agent.
Sure. You could also take a handful of crushed malt and stir it in when you're at temperature. Malt has, beer souring lacto on it.
I've done
lactobacilli.
I've done that as well. It tends to, there's a lot of other stuff on there too.
Sure.
and it's kind of unpredictable, and
Yeah.
some of the smells that come out in the process are like dumpster and dirty diaper and things like that, and I'm like,
Huh.
it's a little more intimidating.
Sure.
I'm thinking I could do my mash, collect my wort, heat it up to pasteurization temperature, like maybe 180 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. Just to neutralize all the naturally occurring bugs on the grains, and then chill it down to say 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, body temperature, somewhere around there.
Right.
Pitch one or two of these little shots in there, and there's strawberry flavor, but I don't think it's going to make that big of an impact on it.
And also if there's cherry in the, it'll blend in.
Yeah. And then I can set the temperature on my smoker, my electric smoker. Obviously not put any wood chips in there.
Right.
But put some cellophane on the top of that, some plastic wrap on the top of it to keep the oxygen away, and just like house it in the in my cabinet electric smoker, until it sours, and just keep it all in the kettle.
Mm-hmm.
Then once it comes out, I can bring it up to the boil, and boil for however long we figure out we want to boil, and add hops and not lactobacillus, but
right,
lactose. Too many lacts, too many milk products.
That's an important difference between lactose and lactobacillus.
Yeah, don't want to mix those up. So I've already got a bag of lactose, so I'm ahead of the game there.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? I mean, we're wanting to, and here's some background just to give you some bearings on, my small batches. I looked up one of my small batches, and this was a 2-gallon batch, and the original gravity was 1050, and I had used 5 pounds of base malt of 2-row.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to give you a baseline of starting the ingredients of where we need to start. So we need less than that gravity wise, I'm assuming.
Right. Oh, also you have yet another option for souring.
Oh,
because I know endless options are your favorite thing.
Yeah.
You could, if you had some malt extract, you can make like between 1 liter and 2 liter of wort at like 1030, 1020, something like that. And a couple days ahead of time, put one of those shots in that wort and let it essentially brew up a starter of the lactobacillus. So that will, and then you could also on brewing day, you could smell it to see, does this taste cleanly sour, or do we go with plan B? But if it's like cleanly sour, you could use that for the kettle souring, and it would likely go pretty fast. And if the starter smells good, the likelihood of other aromas or flavors cropping up would be lowered.
That's interesting.
It's a little like there are some Berliner Weisses are brewed that way. They get a culture of lactobacillus and add it.
I kind of like that idea. I've got some of those canned. I can't remember who makes them, but the canned starter stuff, the concentrated starter worts.
Oh, cool!
So
that would work. That'd be perfect.
It's like a 1 liter can of
right.
I guess it's or is it a half liter? It's probably half a liter. But yeah, I could easily make a starter with that, and then pitch in one of those probiotic shots,
right,
and keep it warm,
and don't aerate it.
Right.
Yeah, you want to keep it, and then just put a fermentation lock on it, and yeah, that would work. That should work really well. Both it'll save time, and it's also potentially, it'll give you a chance to check on the quality of that pitch.
Yeah.
And smell it.
Yeah.
Because it should be just like strongly lactic acid.
I like that a lot. And that way, even I could let it go past where I wanted it to go. I could get it to where it's like extremely sour.
Yeah.
And then just.
Because then that just gets added to the beer, and it's gonna start slowly.
Yeah. Pre-fermentation, you'd add it to the beer because it's still unfermented wort.
Right.
I like that a lot. That way you're not risking, a full, quote unquote, full 2-gallon batch of beer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're right. You can, if it tastes nasty, then, very little ventured.
Don't use it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And I could make a sous vide bath with my Warthog system so that I could put the Erlenmeyer flask, immerse that in water at, say, 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
And even do a little CO2 purge in the top of the flask.
Sure.
To keep the oxygen out. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it probably saved me a lot of heartache. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It potentially could.
Excellent. Okay. So now let's talk about our base beer.
Okay.
We want, we're going to be adding lactose, which is going to add to the original gravity of the beer, but it's not going to add to the fermentability of the beer. So we need to do some math.
Yep.
So you got a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I got my spreadsheet
to help us do some math.
And one thing I also think we should discuss is, like, there's sort of two ways we could go with this. One, we can make it, a low gravity brown German beer with like a hint of cherries and sweetness from the lactose, or we can make it like, we could go all in on the sweetness and the cherries, and or anywhere in between. Pick how Black Forest do we want to make this beer?
I kind of want, maybe not go all the way, but I kind of want people to taste this beer and go, "Oh, this is rich and delicious," but then have it like 3.5% ABV.
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, not like syrupy sweet, right?
But noticeably sweet and noticeably like the flavors of the cake, the chocolate, and
yeah. I want this to be fun, and something that you would sit and by a fire in January or whenever this is done, and share it with some friends, and as the last beer of the evening, and be responsible at the same time.
Right.
So, and we should probably use as much German ingredients as possible to keep with the theme.
Sure.
So Pilsner malt maybe as the base malt.
I'd start with Pilsner. Yeah, that's a solid. And you're doing 2 gallons?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not 3?
Well, the finished, the finished.
I'm just taking you on. Make more of it. Maybe you'll send me 3 beers.
Well, in the recipe I looked at, I start with 3.5 gallons of water, and then mash into that. Of course, I mash in with 5 pounds of grain, but it's not going to make that much of it. There's not going to be that much absorption difference. But remember that in the 2-gallon batch, 5 pounds of grain gave me 1050.
Yeah, it's way too high.
Original gravity, yeah.
I'm going to start off with 2.5 of Pilsner malt, and for a 2-gallon batch, that brings us to 1033. About If it was a normal beer, it'd be around 3.5%. But then I think some Munich.
Yeah, how are we going to get it brown? Remember, it's got to be brown.
Munich's going to be brown. And then I think some like Cara Munich, one of the German Cara malts, at around 60%, and that'll give us also a little more sweetness and body.
Okay.
Which is one thing you want.
Mm-hmm.
So Pilsner, Munich, Crystal, and let's see, we've got lactose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna add a half a pound of lactose. And now we're way too strong, but we can dial some of this down.
But remember that lactose obviously is not going to be fermentable, so.
Right. Yeah, that's my spreadsheet even takes that into consideration.
Oh. We might have to goose the base malt just a little bit. Your spreadsheet tends to give me more credit than reality as far as efficiency goes.
Right.
Like for instance, with the the Belgian Golden, you recommended 8 pounds of Pilsner malt, and I boosted it up to 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm. So what I have right now, which I think will make, let's see. Hang on a second. Let me just Google SRM and beer color and see what. So I think the color I'm getting here is within what we're looking for. Okay, not quite.
Of course, we can call it brown forest instead of black forest.
Yeah,
forest.
Okay, here's what I've got for 2 gallons. 1.25 pounds of Pilsner malt, but you can bump that up a little bit. A half pound of Munich, like the 10 degree Lovibond, 8 to 10 in that neighborhood. Although you could go with the darker Munich too. Half a pound of lactose, and half a pound of some sort of caramel malt in the 60 degree Lovibond. Weyermann has a bunch, and there should be at least one that falls in there. That gives us an SRM of 16, which is like, deep amber to brown, not black. If you wanted like to make it black,
we went brown. The Masher Luck character was brown. It's our first brown beer.
Right. And you could, if you want a darker, put in like 1 to 3 ounces of Black Patent or something. But this will get you to brown.
Yeah, we went brown. So 1.25 pounds of Pilsner, half pound of Munich, the 10 Lovibond, half a pound of 60 Lovibond crystal malt or Cara malt, and then half a pound of lactose.
Right. And that brings us to an OG of 39, an SRM of 16, an ABV a little bit over 4. Depending on the breaks. Now, if you mash higher, like if you do a short high mash, like at 158 for like 15 minutes, then you'll get, a higher ABV and a higher, not a higher ABV, you get a higher final gravity. Or if you go like a longer mash, but that doesn't really make sense when you're adding lactose, and then you're just sort of going at cross purposes. But yeah, it'll be a session beer, and then of course the lactobacillus is going to take some of the, it's going to lower the FG depending on how far the kettle souring progresses.
So just like maybe an ounce of Czech Sats at the beginning of the boil,
something like that. Like, I mean, what?
I mean, the last batches of Czech Sats I've gotten are like only 2.5% alpha acid.
Yeah, if you had a whole ounce, then you're in the low 20s, 22, 23 IBUs.
Okay.
Which isn't that, maybe add 3/4 of an ounce. if you want it to get a little lower.
Okay. And then I was just thinking of USO5.
Sure.
Just for...
Yeah, clean ale yeast.
Yeah.
And then you sour it in the kettle.
And then at bottling time, just flavor to taste with the cherry extract from the homebrew shop, from
right.
Small Batch Boutique is where I'm going to be shopping for these things. And I've got a ton of cacao nibs. So,
right.
I'm going to do a tincture with vodka with that. And I'd say we're good.
Yeah.
Bottle condition.
A teeny bit of vanilla extract wouldn't be horrible either.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I just love suggesting extra work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, James, why don't you go do this other thing?
Well, it's not like I'm going to make my own vanilla extract. I'm just going to get that little bottle out of the...
Yeah. And with a tincture and just adding the extract, you can take a small sample and doctor it first and see like how much. And that's the...
So we're going right
we're
going right into the bottling bucket. What else? Is there anything else that we need to think about?
I don't think so. I mean, fairly low gravity sour. I think a normal amount of carbonation is going to work. It doesn't seem to me, it doesn't benefit from having a higher carbonation because that just makes it feel drier.
Mm-hmm.
And having it lower, it's still, that might make it too sort of chewy and sickly sweet.
Yeah.
So I think normal carbonation. And I mean, this is a beer that should age quickly, like you're not going to have to cellar it for, a couple months or anything. It should be like, once it's in the bottles, it should be, or once it's in the keg, it should be good to go.
Yeah. I guess the trickiest part is souring that starter. And then, after the boil, I should probably, no, I don't need to boil that starter. Or no, if
it's sanitary, you shouldn't need to.
I need to pasture. No, I mean, before I add it to the beer, or as I'm adding it to the beer, I can probably just add it at the end of the boil.
Yeah.
And it'll be hot enough to pasteurize it, so it'll kill the lactobacillus.
Do you want to kill the lactobacillus though?
Yeah, before you go into the fermenter, because I don't want it to be more sour. If I'm blending to taste for sourness.
Okay, so you just want the starter to be sour, and that directly to
yeah,
that could work.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That way, yeah, you just sour the starter up a bunch, and then just like add that sort of to taste at the end of the boil, and that way it sanitizes that. It pasteurizes that so that the lactobacillus has done its job, and then we dispatch it.
Yep.
If we think about it too much, we would feel guilty about all the microorganisms that we press into service and then kill after we're done with them. But, so yeah. I think I like it because it's different from anything I've done before. It's yet another new approach.
It should be interesting, especially with like the big dark beer we did. The chocolate flavor from the cacao nibs was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, a balance of chocolate, a little bit of sweetness from lactose, a tiny bit of flavor from vanilla. That should be really good.
And the cherry, and then the tartness. Hopefully, the tartness from the kettle sour.
Yeah, sort of a balance between sweet and sour.
Yeah,
that's. I'm glad we thought of that unique cooking thing that nobody else has ever thought of. Sweet and sour.
The balance between sweet and sour.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't let that get out.
Like, what if I made a stir fry of pork and I had sweet and sour in it? Where do I come up with these ideas? Oh,
I'm a genius.
Genius.
Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
Super genius.
The ones where he talks kind of always disturb me, but that, maybe that's just me. Well, I think this is good. I was intimidated at first when I got these characteristics. When I rolled them out, I was like, how am I going to do that? But then I think, we have a theme, and it's solidly in the, you can't argue that this isn't, German because we got German ingredients in there, and it's, a dessert or beer inspired from a dessert inspired by a region in Germany. So there you go.
Yeah. Could be a good dessert beer, like you say,
Yeah. And it won't knock you off your stool, whatever.
You have to use the Belgian Golden for that.
Yeah. How's that good? How's it tasting now? Is it warmed up a little bit? How's it taste?
Yeah, it's good.
Are you tasting the clove?
Maybe a little, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's definitely got a Belgian yeast character to it.
Yeah.
That to me is reminiscent of Duvel, and a tiny bit reminiscent of some of the Chimay beers. Yeah.
I think a gnome is the Ashoof. We say
that's
it's
what we looked up.
The Ashoof. Casey from Imperial let us know. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I've got another pouch, and I'm going to give it to Steve. That's how good of a friend I am. I'm going to give it away.
How did it perform? I mean, did you pitch it and it just took off like a?
Well, it arrived 4 days later than I expected because
I remember that. Yeah.
Because I've cheesed off the shipping companies for some reason. I don't know. They've got me on a blacklist. But I made a starter with it, and it was done with the starter in just a few hours.
Nice.
And then the next morning, it was bubbling out of the air. The airlock was full, and so I was able to catch it before it blew the lid off the bucket again. So I just let it come out of the airlock of the hole in the top of the bucket and the lid of the bucket, and it did that for a few hours. Not tremendous. I didn't lose a tremendous amount of beer, but enough that I couldn't put the airlock back on after cleaning it. So it was very, very happy, and that tends to happen with me with beers with Belgian yeasts and wheat malt. I tend to have to, and I even used firm cap in there, and it still, even with the firm cap S, it came out. It was marching. It came out. But no, yeah, performed very, very well. And it's just a delicious beer. So glad I was able to. Thanks for helping me formulate it. I was glad I was able to share it with you.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Colby. Unless there's other business to be put in front of the bench or whatever.
No, I think we've covered it. I think we got a solid idea. I think the beer is going to be. It'll be interesting to see how close it comes to our expectations.
Yeah.
And then, if it's worth pursuing, try to tweak it and get it closer.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, happy holidays. Happy 2025.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you and yours as well.
Yeah, you and urine. And you
and urine.
We'll talk to you next year.
Okie dokie.
Many thanks to Chris. The plan to make a sour starter did not work out. Those probiotic shots that I used didn't sour the beer at all, and I wasn't able to find the Good Belly Pro Shots locally that I've used successfully in the past. So I went online to a small batch boutique and got some lactic acid. I've never used lactic acid to sour a beer post-fermentation, so I'm very curious to see how that turns out. Wish me luck. In the meantime, if you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. So until next time, till then, thanks for listening. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.